Shazam! Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back, because today I'm going to give you guys my review for the sequel to Shazam and one of the last remaining movies to come out in the DC Extended Universe, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. It is once again directed by David F. Sandberg, and it brings back majority of the cast and crew from the previous movie with some new additions. And let me know down below in the comment section, what's your take on Shazam! Fury of the Gods? I'd love to hear that down below in the comment section, and with that said, let's get started. After the battle with Dr. Sivana, Billy Batson and his fellow foster family are still learning how to juggle being teenagers and superheroes with the powers of Shazam. However, when a vengeful trio of ancient gods arrive on Earth in search of the magic powers stolen from them a long time ago, it is up to Shazam and the family to fight them in battle and save the world once again. The first Shazam is one of my favorite movies in the DC Extended Universe. It's one of my favorite DC movies in the past couple of years. I love what David F. Sandberg was able to do to tell the story about this kid who's trying to find family, and he all of a sudden has the powers of a god whenever he says the word Shazam. And it is a really fun movie. It's really cute. It does a good job of balancing the tones between lighthearted, fun aspect with some elements of Spielberg in there, with some more horror-like elements with the 7 Deadly Sins. And it is a really good movie, and I absolutely love it. So for a while, I was really curious to see, with David F. Sandberg once again returning as director, what he and the crew are going to have in store for the sequel, because looking at the marketing, it's going to be bigger, grander, now that Shazam and the family all have powers rather than just being Billy Batson for a majority of the first movie. I was really looking forward to it, but the marketing for this movie was very underwhelming to me, with the trailers giving away so much about the movie, especially a certain cameo, and just the tone of it, mainly the second trailer, didn't seem like it was exciting me the way I should be for this movie. So I came in with optimism, but also some worries that this could be an inferior follow-up to Shazam because of how much I love that movie. So now that I finally have the chance to go see Shazam! Fury of the Gods in theaters, I liked it. It's a fun sequel to Shazam with a lot of the charm I love from the previous movie, and although it definitely enhances the scale, it does feel like an inferior follow-up. Once again, it's very well directed by David F. Sandberg. He still brings his way of making movies in there. There's still that elements of horror in there because he does have some history with making horror movies, especially with Annabelle Creation. And with some of those elements in that first Shazam movie, it does come back here. Once again, it's still very well directed for him making a much bigger project than he's ever had to make, especially because it's a much bigger movie than the first Shazam. I thought he did a really good job of, once again, telling a new story with Shazam and the family. It is very well directed, and because it's a much bigger movie, so is the action and the spectacle. And I was very entertained with the action, the spectacle, just seeing Shazam and the family use their powers, work as a team, take on the trio and the Daughters of Atlas in that form. And for what that was, it's really cool, especially the third act with Shazam. And what this movie does with the action sequences is very good. Definitely different than how it was in the first movie because it's much grander than the previous movie. But I really enjoy the action sequences. They're well shot. I liked how we see Shazam and the crew utilize their abilities, and also to see them save people at points in the movie, which I also really appreciate for a comic book movie. So on the action front, very entertaining. If you are someone that loves watching movies just for the spectacle, you should be very entertained by this movie. The performances are great in this movie. Everyone really seems to have showed up here, and they really gave it their all in the movie they had to work with the standouts being Jack Dylan Grazer, Rachel Zegler, Helen Mirren, Asher Angel. They are fantastic in this movie, especially because Billy Batson isn't as prominent as Billy Batson in the movie like in the last movie, so we get to see a lot more of Freddy in the movie, and I really love what this movie does with Freddy. He has one of the more satisfying character journeys over the course of the movie, with him wanting to grow up, be his own man, not be tied down to just being a member of the Shazam family. He wants to be his own person. And even with the introduction of Rachel Zegler's Anthea, who they have a little romance with one another that I also really like too. There's some cute moments, and just seeing how both characters grow over the course of this movie I thought was very satisfying. And for the Daughters of Atlas themselves, I really like what the movie does with the performances from Helen Mirren, Lucy Liu, and Rachel Zegler. They were all very good actresses. Really like what they do with them here. Zachary Levi is once again very charismatic as Shazam, bringing that youthful, childlike energy to the character of Shazam whenever Billy Batson becomes the godlike superhero. And he's still very entertaining here, and so as Grace Fulton and a lot of the cast members. They are all very good in this movie. And even Djimon Hounsou as the Wizard, he gets a much bigger role in this movie, and he is great. He really showed up, ate up the scenery, had some of the funniest moments in the movie. I really like him here. Very underrated actor and a really good talent. Everybody else in the movie as a whole does a really good job with their performance for Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Although the scale is much bigger than ever for the Shazam family, the movie still has the charm of the first movie, the focus on family, where if Shazam was all about Billy Batson finding family and trusting them, this movie's all about what will it take for him to try and keep the family together as they are growing up, because nothing lasts forever. And there's a really good message in this movie, especially with people being themselves and family. Very heartfelt, very heartwarming. I really like the message this movie tries to give out, especially now that we're seeing the Shazam family in this form as teenagers and as adults. And from that side of the movie, it's still very heartfelt. So even with the big superhero nature that looms all over the movie, it never loses sight of the charm of Shazam, where you still have the messages, you still have the focus on family, which Dominic Toretto would be proud of.
You don't turn your back on family.
And overall, it's still full of really heartfelt moments with these characters that it never loses sight of it. It's a well-paced movie for what it is, and although it is really quick at points and I wanted more time spent on some of these characters, some of these themes, that doesn't get expanded upon as much as I would have liked. It's well-paced, never boring. It still has a good amount of action and as much character development as it could provide for the story at hand. And adding to that, the comedy is still solid here. While not as funny as the previous movie, there are definitely a few jokes that didn't really land for me. I still laughed a good bit at this movie overall. It still does a good job with delivering humor, landing with jokes, and fitting at the right time that it needs to be said in for a majority of the movie. Another thing Shazam! Fury of the Gods does a really good job at doing is expanding the mythology, really giving it much more of a prominent role in the story, where in the previous movie, it's touched upon, there are aspects of it, but it's not the main focus. There's a lot more of it here, the more mythological, godlike side of DC. It's touched upon here. There's some really cool aspects in here to give Shazam! Fury of the Gods a very comic booky vibe to it that I really appreciate, especially because we're dealing with characters like the Daughters of Atlas, who are the daughters of a god, and they have godlike abilities, and it's so great to see how the movie brings them in, and so as expand the DCEU to corners it can expand to, despite how much time there's going to be left for the universe in general. So it's cool to see the mythological side of the universe. I really like how it does some new things in Shazam for what this movie has to offer. The story is good, it's serviceable, although inferior to the previous movie. It's so big with a lot of storylines happening, and some storylines are definitely far better than others. Some characters definitely got a lot more than other characters here. But for what it is, it's still good. I liked how it started, and I'm pretty satisfied with the way it ends things off with the Shazam family, although it definitely doesn't feel like this is the last time we're going to see them, despite DCEU being rebooted with whatever Gunn and Safran have in store for it. But what really holds this one back from a story perspective is the connections to the wider DCEU. There is a big cameo that is spoiled in the marketing.
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb, it's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb.
That I didn't really care for. It just came out of nowhere, and there's a lot of plot holes with the character's role in this where it's like, that shouldn't have happened the way that it did, and it feels like it was there just for the fan service sake, and I didn't think it worked for me as much as I like that character. And I sat there feeling empty, where it just feels like it undercuts the moment that it was in, especially because it was a really big moment that it happens in. And because it was spoiled in the marketing, I wasn't very surprised when it took place. And then the end credit scenes were fine. But what really holds them back is I don't even know if they're even going to get a payoff because the DCU is getting rebooted, and it feels like all of this is supposed to set things up for later. But unless Zachary Levi, Shazam, and the characters do return in Gunn and Safran's new DC universe, all this will just feel like no payoff end credit scenes that just took place and happened. And there's just some lines and dialogues and jokes and some of those end credit scenes that I just didn't care for, didn't really land for me. So when the movie was not about trying to tie into the wider DCEU outside of the mythology of the movie and the story about Shazam and the family fighting the Daughters of Atlas, the movie is very good when it focuses on Shazam and those characters. When it goes outside of it and tries to be this movie that sets things up for the DCEU or connects to other things, it didn't really land as well for me as I would have liked it to. Another minor issue I have is, although Zachary Levi is very charismatic and fun as Shazam once again, he feels like he's playing a very different Billy Batson than Asher Angel does, where Asher Angel isn't in this movie as much as in the first, and he's a lot more mature in this movie. But then with Zachary Levi, he's acting like, instead of being an 18-year-old in the body of a godlike being, he's acting like he's like 10 or 13, and that just feels like they weren't in sync in this movie with how they're playing the different versions of Billy Batson, where I liked how they were in sync in the first movie, but in Fury of the Gods, it's much more noticeable that they're both acting very differently than they should have, and that stood out to me. Not a big problem, but it's definitely something I noticed. Overall, I really like Shazam! Fury of the Gods. While the story isn't quite as up to par as the first movie, it's still entertaining, heartfelt, has the family charm that I loved from the first Shazam movie, and everyone seems to be having a blast while they're making and having this movie be made in the way that it is. So although it has issues that I have noticed, I still had a very good time with it. So in the end, I'm going to give Shazam! Fury of the Gods a B+. It's a shame this movie is underperforming, because if you love Shazam, I think you would definitely have a good time with Shazam! Fury of the Gods, but it also depends on how you feel about the comic book movie landscape. If you feel very fatigued or burnt out by how much comic book content we're getting nowadays. But I enjoyed it. I was nervous about aspects of it, but I'm happy to say I walked away enjoying what this movie offered for what it was. I love the first Shazam, and while it's not on the level of the previous movie, I still thought Fury of the Gods is a good movie in its own right, and I'm wondering what's going to be next with James Gunn and Peter Safran's plan for the DCU, whether it's even going to still have these characters and the actors that play them. But for what this is, it's still a very fun movie, and I'm happy we finally got it. So yeah, that's my review for Shazam! Fury of the Gods. What's your take on the movie? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to know your thoughts on the movie. Stay tuned for some upcoming videos I have planned very soon. I'm going to have a review for The Last of Us Season 1, which I cannot wait to talk to you guys about. And soon we're going to be getting John Wick Chapter 4, which I am extremely excited to see as a fan of the John Wick movies. So please go stay tuned for all that fun stuff coming your way very soon. And don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below. So please go do that while you're at it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button, and stay tuned for more.
I just threw a truck at a dragon. I love my life.